right along, and you are so young.
Oh gosh. Yeah, thank you. I mean, it's interesting. I really enjoy the process of aging. I feel like cheese and wine, like I am way better as I've aged. So I have an appreciation for getting older for me,
Aw,
but
how fortunate.
it is interesting. I went to check in with one of my daughter's teachers just before the shutdown happened, and I walked into the classroom and she's like, well, study hall hours are not from this time, and I was like, oh no, and she's like, oh my god, you're a parent. I was like, yeah, that's what's going on here. So there's some youth in there
Wow,
yet.
I could have never done both.
Oh, I have no idea how this is
For
working out, but
you.
welcome everybody to today's eat and greet. It's eat and greet time, which is always
Yay.
brilliant. It's exciting. And this is your first time here.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And you asked me, I was getting ready to ask you. So I am thrilled. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Well, and hopefully today, you guys, we will give you something that is worth the time you took to show up. Today, snack wise, I am still not on solid food, so I'm on the oatmeal train, but I do have enough hydration to survive. So
Yeah.
always interesting to see what people are bringing to snack on.
You
So I can't
are
wait to see what everybody has today. It's fun.
right.
We
Yeah.
we eat together at this time. It's like the siesta for some people, but with snacks. It's
I was
brilliant.
going to, but I already ate this little tortilla and the cheese fell right on my pants. So I thought, well, I'm glad I didn't do it on camera.
Absolutely. And I don't know, maybe there's a little something for later. Hopefully got some cheese stuck, something like that. Well, I'm thrilled to have you.
Thank
And
you.
Barbara, it was really neat to kind of meet you because we haven't been in classes together. We didn't do anything like
Mm,
that. We got to have a very Aquarian technological meeting and then both want to hang out together.
right. Yeah. And almost all due to COVID. I mean, not all of it, but because it was changing anyway. But I think this really pushed everybody over the edge to like, hey, why not just meet online?
Yeah, I agree. And it was really, for me, even more interesting to hook up with Matthew and Basil and Kathy and start to embrace the till line and method a little bit more and then find out you were in there too. So
Oh, good.
it's just
I'm thrilled. There's a lot of us, and those were the exactly right people to start out with. And oh, I know Noel is hanging around, going, "See, see what happens. This is good." Like one of the last things he said was, "Now go forth and multiply."
well, I'll tell you, it was on my side, the experience is that I didn't know him and I wasn't studying his methods or techniques or anything while he was still alive. But actually, apparently the day that he was passing over is the day where I felt so moved to find you guys, to find Till. And it was, I laughed because I was like, okay, I'm coming. I'm coming. Right. So when you guys say, I think Noel's hanging around, I'm like, oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Cause I didn't know that man. I didn't know anything about it. And I was like, okay, ease up. I'm going. I will find the
That's
people.
wonderful. Yeah, no, I'm sure he's out there doing that the same way as he did in life. And he would have seen, I mean, he didn't even have to look at your chart because he can look at you. Forget the charts now that he's on the other side, but there are things in your chart that suggest how much talent you have at connecting like this. And he would have seen you if he had met you when he was alive, he would have recognized that in you and immediately become a mentor. So it's great.
Yeah, well, I feel really, really fortunate and really very at home in here. But, it's interesting because I am on the generation that didn't get to spend time with him. So I'm even more excited to have you here to share your experience of
Right.
not only the astrology, but the astrology here with the gems that he gave you. So if we
Right.
can you
Yeah.
tell us how you got into astrology?
Right. Well, astrology for me goes way back, not Noel Till so much, but gosh, I must have been, I want to say it was before I was a teen, But by the time I think it was 16, that I got a hold of Joan Quigley's book um, on astrology for adults, it was. And I had already been loving astrology, just sun sign astrology, in the newspaper, because my grandma would always read them to me and her, what do you think? What do you think? But when I got this book, oh my God, I was like, you mean every planet has a sign? And I actually figured out when my moon sign was, and this book has such good graphing in the back to determine your rising sign, that I even figured out my rising degree, and I got it right too. So, and without any of the complicated math. So it just happened to fit in that way. So since 16, I went nuts over astrology, but there were times in my life when I had to back off on studying it for one reason or another, just time or whatever. And Noel Till, I had bought a couple of his books early on at used bookstores, and then somehow in 2005, when I knew I needed to take another step into something more solid than what I was doing, for some reason I gravitated right to him and signed up for his master's course, and it made all the difference in how I do consultations with people and what I have to offer them. So to me, he was everything in the way I do. As many other astrologers that I read, and that was a lot, and appreciated, he was the one that gave me the structure to do it with such power and such meaning. So
Yeah.
I was just, for some reason, I was just drawn to him, and I didn't even know exactly why. And my husband said to me that one day, he says, you need something else. You need more. You need a little certificate or something. And I went online and I stopped at him, and I was like, oh, yes. That's who I want.
Yeah.
And it was the right choice.
That's brilliant that it's, gosh, if my little experience of him passing over and yours, well, he was still alive, if they share anything, I think it is that draw, that there is just like a knowing that's like something good's going to happen here.
That's what it is. That's what it was with him. He was such an emotional person, and he was so passionate about this passionate about teaching others how to look at a horoscope and get really down to the nitty gritty of what propelled that person, what motivated that person, what the center of it. So putting it all together, which is why he calls that book Synthesis of Astrology, but in a feeling way. So many times when he was lecturing, and you've heard many times his big, deep, resonating voice. And when he would get excited, he would get loud, so he would say, and he would say, know it, feel it. So he really knew that there was something of not just guessing or saying to someone, you may not say to that person that you're consulting with, oh, I know this about you. You don't do that,
Right.
but you know it inside. And so instead of saying, well, maybe this or maybe that, you already know what you want to get to, what point you want to get to.
Mm-hmm.
So, and one of the gems that he gave us for that process of being with somebody in consultation was to use the phrase, the astrology suggests. You heard of that one, right? Because absolutely. I think before I was a student of his, I would say things like, well, it means this, or it never suggests. That's the last word I would have picked. It predicate, or it symbolizes, or it determines, or it indicates, And every time I wrote that in my lessons, he'd remind. No, he'd stop reading it. He'd go, nope, it doesn't indicate, it suggests.
Yes.
It took a long time to get that. And now it comes out so fluidly, and I appreciate it every single time that I say it. Every single time.
That is a gem. And it's funny that it's just one phrase, but it is one that nicely kind of steps us out of the way of knowing. right? Which I think,
Even though you do know,
no,
there are so many
you,
things. There are so many things, you don't know the particulars, you don't know what happened to that person's life. You don't even know what's going to happen next, but you know the energies that are surrounding it. You completely, once you get Noel's recipe or whatever he calls his tools, you can do that with a horoscope. You don't even have to meet that person. You don't know the details, but you know that person already.
yeah, that's brilliant. Well, I'm pumped. I know you've got slides
Yeah.
and you've got gems for us, and I'm like, give the
Yeah.
gems. I'm such a Taurus. I'm like, you have gems and jewels, bring them out.
Okay. Well, I'll start with just two pictures of Noel, one when he was younger and one when he was older, which is when I met him. So that, that's was my first impression of him. And
Okay.
let's see if I can
Well, and
share
it's going to
this.
be interesting, I think, to see the photos and see what you have to share as well, because, while I was never had the chance to meet him, you met him when he was older, but he was running around the astrology circle,
I
younger.
know
So it's not,
it was.
he wasn't just wisdom on high. He was out here beating the drums and Noeling people before, before we get to see him here.
I know, I know. And he was singing opera for so long, and he was writing astrology while he was singing opera. So he had practically two careers at once, getting published some of his earlier books. This photo of him where he looks so handsome at age 39 was taken in like 1974. And at that time, he was in other this other photo here as Wotan, which is the lead role in Wagner's The Ring. So it's The Ring. It's got this long, complicated story, right? But Wotan is one of those big kingly, personages that has lots of angst, that he goes through and decisions to make, and he sings about it, and he's this huge character. And Noel was 6'8", so they liked that to begin with. And also he could speak German as well as English. So they actually ran two different shows. One was in English and one was in German. And that was in Seattle in like this, I don't know how many years, but 1975 or so. And he had already graduated from Harvard University in 1958. So he's kind of a guy that was old school in many ways, because really he left Harvard 2 years before what Timothy Leary took over with LSD, and then got kicked out and everything. So he kind of missed that whole flavor of stuff. So in a way, he did have not outdated perceptions, but some of them stuck. He had a very open mind, but he did keep projecting what things that he kind of knew about society, and that was his major at Harvard was sociology or social relations. So he took psychology, he took developmental psychology. So this stuck in his head when he started doing astrology, so that he knew, he understood that there were things that you could look at in the horoscope and actually see what a person experienced developmentally growing up and what that meant to them. So that was, extremely huge for him. This is a later photo, of course. This is about what he looked like when I met him in 2005 is when I signed up for his master's course. And this nice poster is what Kathy Rose made for, it's on her site, Till Master Work, which is the set of recordings that Kathy Rose and her husband took in their home for Noel. Helped him all the way through these, so people can still hear his awesome voice, this resonant
Booming.
yeah. And it wasn't quite the same as when he stood up in front of us as his personal student. I wouldn't say, of course, because he was sitting behind a desk and being videotaped, but it can come close, I think, at times. So the where that took him actually was, okay, so this was much later. And I don't think he would have done this at his own house, partly because he wasn't really a high-tech wizard. I don't think he was interested in that kind of thing. And like I said, he was kind of old school. He could do some things, but it wasn't, oddly enough, it wasn't as exciting for him as what I thought it would be. Not that I had anything to do with it, but it was really amazing that Kathy came along and said, well, you know, you come to our house, use our house, which was a very beautiful house. And yet if he had done it at his house, you would have seen his grand piano and his Marc Chagall original, you know, over his, you know. So, I mean, it's just, he didn't think of him, so he didn't, you know, he didn't need to brag about anything. It was just his passion for helping others learn to do what he wanted, you know, to do. And the next slide goes into more of, starts into some of what he was teaching that was very different from other astrologers, and that makes him, I think, exceptional. And he was even a legend in his own time, probably more for the way he taught than what he taught, because it was extremely entertaining to be in front of him in a classroom. He was like the best teacher you could ever hope to have in university or anything, you know. He inspired people. He would give you goosebumps, you know, and you wanted to applaud, you know, for where he led you to, you know. So,
absolutely. And he was a Leo, correct?
yeah, well, he was a Capricorn with a, we'll talk about Oriental planets, but Jupiter right in front of the sun. So it came up, I mean, actually it's behind technically in the sky, but it came up over the rising of the, you know, the horizon just before the sun came up, and that makes it Oriental. So anybody with an Oriental Jupiter is really meant to be a person who's out there, you know, they're big, you know, they're a big person in many ways. And he was a teacher. So the Leo moon, you know, was in his third house, which is speaking, you know. So it was very powerful, you know. He called it the reigning need, that the moon was everybody's reigning need, which personally I don't swallow that one, but many people do, and it registers with them, I think, because the moon is a nurturing kind of a function in our life. And so we think, well, that's my biggest need, is to nurture myself, you know. So but he saw it as what he did to the max, you know, was to get up there and do his talk. So I can see why it certainly was for him, you know.
Oh my gosh.
His biggest need, you know, was to reach others with what he learned, you know, and pass on that knowledge. You know. So,
well, and he did it. I mean,
he did.
You know, the line lives on. They're still studying. I know that there is a conference coming up, and so we have gone forth to multiply effectively.
Right, and I hope it keeps going. That's what right now, if I do anything, if I keep going in astrology, and I'm getting older, you know, I want to just help the people that I'm helping, and that's good enough for me. But what I want even more than that is to make sure that the information gets out there about how valuable what Noel passed on to us is, because it's been incredible for me, and I want to make sure that does multiply so that people see it. And already I start seeing people using certain things that Noel was the one who brought them up, but they don't necessarily know where they came from, which is fine. And Noel himself said that we teach one another. We don't need to brag about who thought of it. but he did think of some things. When I signed up for his course, at that time, we would type up our lesson, that we had. It took me 3 years to do it, to type up the lesson and mail it to him. And then he would mail back an audio cassette in response, and some people said, oh, I kept all of them because it was wonderful to get, he was talking to each person, that he was grading or, discussing whether or not he thought they did well on the lesson. And sometimes he wasn't happy with your lesson, and he would kind of lean on you and make you feel bad, and like you didn't put enough into it. And I'd be crying,
Yeah.
and going, no, and I'd throw things. I mean, I got very emotional because he was really telling me this isn't right. You have to try harder. You're not putting anything into it, Barbara, So I would cry at other times if he praised me. I was just in heaven,
Yeah.
He was that kind of guy. And he did that to every one of his students. And I think it was hardest on some of the men because they didn't like being told that they weren't doing well enough and they would quit,
Sure.
And so I was like the 42nd graduate, but and he told me, he said, he says, there's been hundreds signed up before you. He says, but they quit. And he said it was because they had gotten out of it. The first 9 lessons were the core of it. And he says, once they got that, they figured they didn't need the rest. Well, they didn't get the diploma either,
Sure.
And so they saved money by not paying for the last part of it, but they didn't get a diploma. So, oh, well, and that diploma means so much to me because, I honored him so much. And if I just said, oh, I have enough, that would have been rude. It would,
Right. And maybe just not as fulfilling to you, especially too, because it is a fair amount of work. So
It was a lot of work. So a lot of it was delightful and a lot of it was just I had to suffer through it because if I rather than get into an argument with Noel on whether or not I did well enough or said it the way I thought it should be said, So just so he is considered a humanistic astrologer who bases what he does on core needs that people have. So even though he knew how to do he knew how to do mundane astrology, he knew how to do horary astrology, he knew pretty much the gamut, but his desire was to help individuals see themselves a little better and help them to maybe transform some of the hard parts in their life and get them to work for them so that they could be successful in many ways, not just professionally or something, but with a partner and every way possible as a parent. So these tools that he gave us were for that. I mean, some of them that I'll be talking about here are things that other astrologers saw, but they never stressed them the way he did as something that we could use to mark the astrology, the chart of that person immediately to say, okay, this is going to be important. Single things that we see as important because that isn't going to go away. Those that you haven't synthesized it yet, but that certain things are important. Like I'll be bringing up the AP point, which is the Aries point. And for people who might be listening and don't know what that is, because I was in a group of like pretty decent astrologers for a while and mentioned AP point one day. What's AP? So it's just the way you say it, maybe,
Right.
So Aries point is that point at which we get our spring equinox. It's the 0 Aries, right at spring.
Yeah. I've got my Venus season right there.
And I'm going to talk about that. I have your chart I'd like to share. It's remarkable what what houses it refers to. So anyway, so the 2 solstices, summer and winter, And the fall, and those two equinoxes, the spring and the fall, those are what we call the Aries point, even though they're not all Aries. So it's 0 Aries, 0 Cancer, 0 Capricorn, 0 what did I leave out?
Libra.
Libra. Yeah, thank you. So anybody that has any planets or angles on that point, that's a visible trait, quality, something in their life that everybody can see. So it's like it's on show. And that's good to know when you see someone's chart, so that you can start after that deciding how they are actually applying it, because you almost can't get away from that. You can't hide from it. You're always going to be visible in a certain way, in that way.
Yes.
Things like that. That's a good gem for me, because he insisted that we see it. Don't skip seeing it. The other thing he insisted seeing was, and I can show some of these, but I will. But the other thing he insisted on was the sun moon midpoint. And when I get a slide up here, I'll show what that means, because some people may not get it or want to even think about it, that might be listening right now. But I will start actually with some of the other, where did it go?
Yeah, that's beautiful. And we're actually going to have just coming in the next couple eat and greets, we're going to have a whole midpoint lesson, a whole eat and greet on midpoint lesson. It'll be a tutorial. So
nice.
Take it in.
Nice.
Take it in.
Yeah. Midpoints are really fun. And that was kind of another thing I didn't work with before. There's so many things I didn't work with before Noel, and because he introduced them in the course. And I do have to admit, I had never taken a real course before him. I was just reading and reading and reading and,
Sure.
doing consultations and getting together with people and things like that. But and I have to call this one of his gems, it's a big one, what he would call the Saturn retrograde phenomenon. And most everybody has heard of the Mercury retrograde and how we're supposed to be leery of that. But we don't hear in everyday life or in the newspaper, oh, Saturn's going retrograde. It does what it does the 1/3 of the time. But in astrology for a long time, most astrologers who saw Saturn in particular either conjunct, square, or opposite to the sun immediately thought of the father figure in the home, or the father authority figure in the consciousness, how we think about that authority figure in our life. And that is because the sun basically represents the male energy, and Saturn also represents the authoritarian rule maker, which kind of from the beginning of time anyway is more of a male male type of function. Even though we don't all have a dad in the home that makes the rules, it's kind of the way we expected it. So what he's saying here is that there's always a complexity of the father when the Saturn is retrograde, when it is RX. And he says this because Saturn is RX when it is trine to the sun. And from a long time ago, people, astrologers, have been loving trines and think they're so wonderful, so happy, so perfect. We can't go wrong with a trine. Well, in the first place, Noel didn't think trines were so awesome. And in the second place, even if Saturn is in a trine, if there's an RX there, if it's going retrograde, and from our point of view, there's something going on with the father, especially if it actually is trine. From the sun to Saturn. And I would say it's really just saying that, okay, this person that you see with a retrograde Saturn, but it's in a trine, you say, well, what has happening probably is that there is a suggestion of the child in the home trying to please the father figure, trying to just be smooth in harmony with the dad. regardless of the fact that the dad might be ignoring him or pushing him too hard, that kind of thing. So that's still there. And this is what he says about the RX. There's a legacy of inferiority taken on in childhood through the relationship of the father, who was either absent, passive, or so tyrannical as not to be giving the authoritative love. So something was off, and it affects a person deeply, male, women and men, both. So he's talking about the father figure in the home. And this is a knowledge. This is one of those know it, feel it. Because so many times he'd get up there and put an example and tell what was going on with this person and say, know it, feel it, get it in you, because don't ever question, when there's an RX that, well, maybe it wasn't like that for this person. Because these people, especially with the trine to the sun, will insist, oh no, I loved my dad. He was everything to me. But they're unable probably to look and think they did it to gain a pat on the back. Maybe that's all I got was a pat on the back,
Right. Yeah, this has been, I mean, when I learned about this, studying with Kathy Rose, this was such an interesting point because I too have Saturn retrograde in my chart. So I got to go back and view it from this perspective and the lens, and then think about, okay, how does that align with the manifestation and the understanding I have just in my life? And it can, I feel like if people are open to it, it can create a doorway that is, you're able to walk through.
Right.
And
Right.
have this different experience.
Exactly. Yeah. And Noel said something once that I wrote down here. Not only using, the astrology suggests, because you're not telling them that there was something wrong in the home, and that's a way of getting in, to a person. So they're not being defensive right away. But he said it's using the element of surprise for a person, that you've done it the right way. So when you're talking to them, they have this awareness maybe at one point that what you're suggesting really, really did happen. And they might see it, in a bigger way or truer way than they have before. And they have that little awakening, and sometimes they'll cry. And he would always say, now those are tears of recognition,
Right.
and he would tell his client that. And I love that. And he was trying to tell us that one day about using surprise like that, and which sounds like a very, it needs a lot of finesse. You get better at it as you have more experience as a consultant. But so when he was saying that, I was still kind of new at it. And he says, and you can do this for people. And I said, well, then who's going to do it for us? And I meant, like us in the room, are we supposed to get readings from other students here? Because he should have just said, no, you come to me.
Yeah. Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
that's so funny.
But I never did get a reading from him, because over the years he saw all our horoscopes, and he would just say it anyway. He would just come out and say it to you over time, different things, it would open you up and make you realize things about yourself, so it's pretty cool.
No need to go get a formal reading. We've all heard about my life.
Oh yeah, he came up to me, because I was generally so shy. When I was about ready to graduate, it was one of the seminars. And by the way, it was student only seminars, and he used to call them the Vatican, because we would we would get in a big suite, and maybe there'd be 45 of us, and he'd, welcome to the Vatican, because
awesome.
we felt that whatever we talked about in there was so, highly specialized, and so, such things that the world would benefit from, and,
Yes.
secrets too.
Yeah. And what a special place. Like, it's like the vault, you're going to come, we're going to reveal, and it's going to be amazing.
Right. And so this next slide here, forgot what train of thought I was on, but that this is my favorite gem of his. And the whole thing is a gem. The way he treated the lunar nodes, and it was funny because he was he kind of partnered up with Jeffrey Green for a while. They wanted to build a school together, or get a school going in the United States for astrology, and it didn't. Something happened. It didn't pan out. It didn't work, and the two of them were going to kind of work together on that. And Jeffrey Green, as we all know, if you read any of his Pluto books, was really all about the lunar nodes being this life and the past life.
Mhm.
That is what the reincarnation, evolutionary astrologers kind of wanted to focus on for that, which is awesome, but that was how he looked at it all the time. And Noel did too, because he would notice lunar nodal comparisons with other charts. If you had a planet on someone's lunar node, then you probably did have a past life with that person. So there was that. So he did understand that it was a reincarnational thing. But more than anything, he saw it over and over and over again as being, if you had a strong planetary aspect with it, being involved with the mother influence. So
Mhm.
he made this quote that said that it was a knot of complication through the mother, which I think is a perfect way of putting it. Or he says it could be actual strengths that the mother, provided it with her influence. So just like anything else, it can be good or bad, in your life. I went in my book a little bit differently with this and developed it a little more, but really I got it from him because no one else was talking about the mother being associated with the lunar nodes. And today people do, but they often don't know where they got it from, but it was Noel. I don't know
Yeah.
any other astrologer who thought of it. And it's true. It is definitely part of the mother, what the mother brings into the life. And I go into this in my own view because he didn't say much else than this. And in fact, I think he didn't make a big enough deal out of it because he made a really big deal out of Saturn. And this was kind of like tacked on. It was like, well, one of the things you could say about the lunar node is this: often it is the mother's influence, which is fine. But I think it needed to be one of those things where he said, pay attention.
Yeah.
This is always the mother.
Yes, it is actually from studying this that I was able to take a lot, like a different look, not only at the nodes, but just at the moon placements and really what that was doing and bringing in, and definitely these signatures with Saturn and Pluto and Uranus, right? And that it kind of changed the game in my thinking as far as what I had known as well. So it's always neat to see where it came from and how
Oh yeah,
applicable it is.
right. Yeah, I'm amazed that he noticed it, and to him it was just so obvious. And he did so many readings that he started seeing particular ones, like here the Saturn. What did it mean if the Saturn was with it? Well, he thought of the obvious. Well, she took on the role of the father. The mom did. And I thought, wow, it's true. I have that in my chart, and I think you do too, Stormy.
Yep, I do. And it's funny because my oldest daughter has moon conjunct Capricorn, and it's so funny. I just or conjunct Saturn, and they're both in
Oh,
Cancer in her fourth house, and I'm like, we're gonna get through this. I'm in charge right now, but I promise I'm helping you have your own identity. Okay, I'm trying to
I
give
hope
you the gifts of this position, not the
so.
holdbacks.
Oh my God, that is great. Well, if oddly you said identity, and the Uranus one is the one that he said was the identity. Actually, he said the mother could steal the identity
Mhm.
of the child. He used the word usurped, but every time I use that, people ask me what usurped means. So
So you're like,
he's
it's
the mother
steel.
steals. She steals it. And funny, there's quite a few, several US presidents who have that in their charts. Obama is
Mm,
one of them. And I think he's a really good example because I think his mother did kind of take over his identity. She wanted him to be that president. She wanted him to get into the politics of, how the world was colonized unfairly and, that kind of stuff. So she got that right into him and knew he was special to begin with, but kind of asked him to do this for her or something like that. So only he could
mm,
explain it well enough, but that was there. And then with Pluto, of course, the further out we go with the planets, the harder it gets on us,
yeah.
And that can be just overwhelming for anybody to have a Pluto type of mom in their face,
Sure.
their whole childhood, not allowing anything that mom says isn't okay. So these three he chose because they were obvious. He saw them. He didn't do it with every planet, but he could have if he had thought he should, I think. But I guess he thought, he was always the kind of guy that if something came to him and it was real and he knew it and he felt it, then he was going to speak it out, but he
Right.
wasn't going to go making up stuff,
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was, pretty cool the way he decided that. So here you are, beautiful you, and the Aries point and also the sun moon midpoint are something remarkable in your own chart. So again, Aries point, as I said earlier, is any of those points that are the equinox or solstices, and we've got the autumn equinox here and the spring equinox here, right at zero, opposite to them each other. So I love it because it exactly is a representation of what you do, Stormie. These two planets rule your third and your ninth house, right?
Yep.
So this is what you do. You've already decided you're here to speak with people and get their answers and see if those compare to other people's answers and mill them around. And I just kind of blew me away when I saw it. And that also goes for the sun and moon midpoint. So when we have a moon over here and then sun over here, we can obviously see that the closest meeting point between these two is on this side somewhere. And when you do the math or just look it up, you get 25-degree Cancer as that point, which just happens to be exactly square to your 25-degree Libra Pluto.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things this equal signs is for with Noel, and that's another gem of his that I think is a great tool that we don't differentiate. I mean, he never did. He didn't differentiate too much with the an axis. He did. You could say, well, yeah, if a planet lands on your descendant, then something's going on with a partner or, something in the outer world. But an axis is an axis. So it actually could be, it's warning you about something from your health. So whenever you have two, whenever you have a midpoint, you've got four of them,
I'm very
because
busy.
yeah. Aren't we lucky? Yeah, we all have those four sun moon midpoints. And Mars goes around pretty fast. So
Mhm.
no wonder we fight with our partners, because that's what Noel says the sun and moon midpoint really represents is our relationship with our significant partner, but it can be, of course, our relationship with the entire world. And in your case, I think that's significant because you're really out there, conversing with a huge, it might be a tribe of astrologers, but it's still really the world at large. So these are quite significant to you. And when you have 25-degree Pluto hitting that spot, even if it is a square, what do you say that says
Oh,
for you?
yeah. Well, I don't know. Most of the time, I really look at the influence of that retrograde and I'm like, universe, I promise I'm going to share with other people this time. I promise I will not compete or usurp them. I will collaborate this time. I have a lot of retrogrades. I have promised the universe to get it together this time.
Yeah, yeah. No, I'm not worried about the retrograde myself. What I'm thinking of, it's not really about I will not control people or I will
Yeah.
not be a powerful one. I mean, there could be that, but I totally see this as something that helps you to ask the questions that go deep. So, and you do at times, or you just ask the next question and it allows someone to bring up something a little deeper if they're ready for it. So I don't see it as control in your case, although I wouldn't really know what goes on in like your married life.
Yeah, and
So that might be
I can tell you in my married life, it is a very conscious choice for me to realize that there's
nice.
another human being over there. And I think that when it comes to relationships, sex powers, and those kinds of things, we can do a lot of damage with them. So I pay a lot of attention to how I affect my partner,
Awesome.
without
That's
losing myself.
That's exactly what we want to be doing with those kinds of energies. And it also allows you to go a little bit deeper if you want to. So a relationship can always benefit from that if both people are willing to do it, you know, to open yourselves up to transformation in a relationship is just incredible. So you got some strong, heavy stuff in your life there. Now, this one I'm going to skip for now. I don't know if I want to keep using it, but I mean, use it at all, but depending on what kind of time we have. But another gem that I think, I mean, obviously Noel didn't invent this one. It is the Oriental planet, but again, a lot of
Yeah.
astrologers don't learn how important it is, so they don't use it. They don't think about it. They forget to look. You know.
Right.
So here we have Jupiter in the chart of David Copperfield coming up over the horizon before the sun does. So it means it's leading the way. It's pulling on the sun to do Jupiterian things. Now, Jupiter could be a lot of different things. It could be teacher, minister, um, you know, inspirational, whatever. It could be a writer, a publisher. But in this case, you see it's in Virgo. And
Yeah.
it is, of course, in the 12th house. So it's something that's going on behind the scenes. Now, I always look to see which house it rules, because to me, that's kind of everything.
Hmm.
And it rules the 4th house. So, you know, what we're trying to do is see how this fits him, how this fits David Copperfield. I have a feeling that, um, like, um, like another, what is his name? David Blaine. They
Oh,
have a similar background in that their mothers were actually, and we can see that also with the Saturn being very close to the lunar nodes. The mothers were important in their lives. I don't remember exactly how David Copperfield's life went, but their mothers were their backup. They were their, you know, their inspiration. They were the ones pushing them and going, you know, because I remember David Blaine saying, "Oh my God, I had a little card trick when I was 9 and my mother went nuts over it. She just went nuts, you know."
so
And
funny.
so after that, I tried harder and harder to get better and better, you know. So it's something to do with the roots of his home, you know, the background, you know, the foundation he had, the support he had to do that. And you can see that it's opposite Mars here, which is um, in Pisces in the 6th house. So it all
The
kind of
escape
relates to that.
artist.
Huh?
Mars in Pisces is the escape artist.
Right. Yeah. And
Mhm.
many other things, just hand tricks, you know, how you move things so it's an illusion and
Yeah.
you have to practice and practice, which is a total 6th house thing. And then you always have this, and Virgo, it has to be just right, or that, that trick is not going to look good, and it's all behind the scenes, you don't really know the magic of the trick. So I thought it's so awesome to see those kinds of things making sense when we see them. But say he was younger, say he was, 18, 19, and he wasn't sure whether he should be a magician or not. And you saw that Pluto there. So, Jupiter there. It's an important part of who he is. So you have to kind of talk with somebody about that. How is that going to, play out? How are you going to be using that sort of thing?
Because it's almost, Jupiter makes it like the mission. Like, this is going to be your mission, like Mission Impossible in the 12th house, right?
Yeah, very good. I like that kind of analogy. So, to not ask, to skip it would be something that no astrologer would want to do.
Sigmund Freud. Wow.
Yeah, this is my favorite gem of all, for what there's a lot of things that Noel talked about when he referred to the rulership, what he called a rulership network. And that was kind of many things for him. But basically, it was what we can find out in the chart by looking at the ruler of certain, especially the planets that look like they're under tension.
Sure.
And he talked about that high developmental tension. Can you see all the reading here? Wait.
Yep.
Oops. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. Okay. So pulling from his schooling at Harvard, developmental psychology, he decided to use that term high developmental tension to represent what we bring forward in life and from different areas of our life, or different experiences in areas of our life. And so he said it was a whole house was under high developmental tension, not the planets, but the houses were under tension. And so that keyed us into the fact that we could understand the motive or the background or the core center of beliefs or experiences that have somebody feeling this tension between these two planets, between these two functions in life. For instance, we can take now, the tensions always come, like I put up here, it's called fourth harmonic aspects. So anything that's in a tight, it doesn't even have to be tight, but conjunct, opposite, or square. So that's the grand cross. That's the cross of matter in our life that we came here to do. Noel didn't use that term very much, but to me, that's what we're here for, is to address our high developmental tensions so that we can transform them into our strengths. And so when you look at them, you want to see what houses are involved. Now, Noel, he keyed into a few houses and actually talked about them like nobody else did. I mean, he would take the fifth house and say to us, that's that house. Now we always say, well, that house is about having fun and being creative and maybe sexual thing, escapades or, having sex with people. But Noel said the fifth house is about giving love, period. And he kind of left that up to us to figure it out. He didn't say how he came about finding that out or calling it that. But what he was doing when he did that was turning the houses into how we feel about participating in that area of life. So really it was about, how do you feel about giving love? How do you feel about sharing your creativity and showing what you can do to other people, letting them have some of that? Being funny, like some people are just real comic, you know, but if they didn't feel good about sharing that with someone, they're not going to use that fifth house energy, you
Right.
know. And it's the same with the first house representing how you move out into the world. Now that's not one of the houses he talked about that way, but after he did a few houses, me and some other people, I think, thought, well, you can do that to any of them. And opposite the fifth is the 11th. And, you know, normally in astrology, we always talked about, well, the 11th house is all about the friends that we make. And maybe it's about the money that we receive from our job. You know, it's like the benefits you get from being involved in society somehow. You go out and so you get friends, you know, and you have this kind of nice social group. You might go to church or something. He didn't mention that at all. He would say the 11th house.
Want some accolades.
No, yeah, he was all about success, though. He liked
Mhm.
people to be successful, but he would say that the 11th house is receiving love. So the fifth house is giving love, 11th house is receiving love. And I thought, wow, what a way to explain that.
Yeah.
So it's not about whether or not you're going to ever receive love and not life. No, it's about how you feel, whether or not you feel like you're going to have any love, or how you feel about accepting love. Maybe there's something that's stopping you from accepting love in life from others. And the way you tell what's doing that is by looking at the rulers of these houses. So you have like Neptune and Mercury. So you would look to see if Mercury and Neptune were in a tense relationship by conjunction, opposite or square. And actually those two aren't. So
So
I was just
they're happy.
doing them by example. Because those were important to him. And also was the ninth house, because he said if you have tension regarding the ninth house, he says you're not going to want to, you're going to have trouble. He said you're going to have trouble developing your success in the areas of your higher mind. So in other words, you might not want to be going to college because you don't think that's for you or something, you know. There might be something that stops you. And that's again when that planet would be in tension with another one. So with this guy, good old Freud, we can see, I mean, this is an obvious one here. We have the sun conjunct to Uranus. So we would look at what house does Uranus rule? We go down here to Aquarius. We see it's the fourth house, which is his home, his foundation. And oh, I see. Yeah, they rule the whole MCIC axis, and the sun is up here ruling. So really he had this tension between where he came from in his home and also in relation to what he had to offer and contribute to the world as a profession. So this makes him, well, it doesn't make him, it suggests
It
that he's
suggests.
going, yes, it suggests that he's going to want to apply all of that energy, because this is all emotional. When you have this tension, it's extremely emotional, and you want to work it out and make the best of it, or else you just give up or something and you hate yourself. But you have to figure out what it is in yourself that didn't allow what you received in your home maybe to become something that would make a good enough status for you in your life. And so of course he became, you know, like the first psychoanalyst. So he's someone that used every bit of his emotion to become somebody important from probably a home that didn't make any sense to him, because the Uranus will also suggest in the home that there was a lot of chaos, that nothing made much sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, these are like some impactful gems, though, that even if you only start to explore a couple of them, it will change the interaction you have with the chart pretty immediately, which is kind of what's so powerful about Noel, is that there is a process and like a very clear set of instructions or like reasons behind the thought process and how to carry it out.
Right. Yeah, he's got a lot of them too. So when you go on to do measurements for the future in someone's chart, then you get to his gem, which were actually bells. I'm sure you heard of this from Kathy Rose and
Look at the
others.
big bells. Look for the
The big
big
bell, you look
bells.
for the big bells because, and he used to, oh man, he so many times he'd be up there in front of us, and after he'd explain all this, he'd go, how many measurements do you need? It's like, or how many measurements do we need? We don't need that many. When you see the big bell, something is really going on. Don't ignore it, and then look for the littler bell that goes with it,
Yeah.
and it works. It works. And you can't miss it. I mean, you could, but you certainly wouldn't miss it developmentally, because I'd say from age, you know, when we're a child to baby, to about 12, that's our early development. So for me, I figure any planets that are separated by even 12 degrees into a hard fourth harmonic aspect in the chart is going to, at the point that they become exact at age 12, is going to be felt
Yeah.
tremendously. And I don't care which two planets it is, because Noel kind of favored, well, if it's an outer planet, you're really going to feel something. Well, I think it's true with all of them for solar arcs. And I know that a lot of people watching don't even know what solar arcs are, but they're not that hard to use if you have a program. And if you love astrology, I mean, they're easy to use. They're just plain easy. And even if you don't have a program, you can count. This was 16 to 20 is 4 years. So, it was when he was 4 years old. Although if you asked him when he was alive, he might not remember anything from 4 or be told. And some people actually do. I've had people say, oh, I don't remember, but I was told what happened at 4, years old.
Yeah. Well, and it's neat. Kathy Rose did an eat and greet last year, and she actually came and presented on solar arc. So we've had people make some movement with it, and it's neat how it informs the practice. It's just these things. I feel like when you find the gems that can shape or reshape your practice or reinform it, that's really exciting to me.
It is. It is. This was, like I said, this was everything to me. After I did readings for a long time before I took Noel's course, and people seemed to enjoy them, and they said that they got some things out of it, but it's not the same. It's not the same as this. I've had people come back to me. Not everybody wants to really look at themselves because it's hard. But I have had people say to me, that I've been thinking a lot about what you said, what you showed me, after I left. So it wasn't just for the fun of the moment or to make them feel, special. Although people will do that, especially if, they have a certain star in their chart, and they, a fixed star, and it's a good one, and they just woohoo, and they go away feeling great about themselves, which is good too.
Yeah, but there's something about, I don't know, like feel it and know it from a different perspective when you're sitting with someone. Because if we're there to have a session or a consultation, I think, where we leave at a little bit of a higher vibration than we came in, then we kind of have to talk about what's there. It's like the truth sets us free, almost.
It should, right?
We
It
would
should.
love that to be true all the time.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, even if it's private, that person you've had a consultation, they're not going to share that with anybody. Why would they,
Right.
So it's
Yeah.
good, it's good to come to the awareness and treat yourself as kindly as you would other people, instead of always just thinking, well, there's things I don't like about myself.
Yeah, especially when you're handed a method or a process that is actually, like you said, built to be successful. It's like we want to create a space of success here.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I don't even know what time it is. Are
Yeah,
we like
we're
going?
at time. It goes so fast, doesn't it? It
Yeah,
goes
I don't
so
have a
fast.
clock here running. You'd think I'd have it on my computer, but I guess I don't.
It goes so fast. But so, okay, if you were to, from your experience, recommend somebody, if they're not ready to fully study this, but they want to kind of have an introduction to some of his writings or his practice, where would you send them? I mean, Synthesis and Counseling, that's a big old book, and you kind of got to want it to have it because there's not that many available anymore, right? In the first
And
place.
they're very expensive. They fluctuate in price, and they're quite expensive. Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of glad I have my Synthesis of Counseling and what is it? Synthesis and Counseling in Astrology. And I was just looking at it the other day thinking, well, this book is more worn out than I thought it was, because for a long time I wouldn't look at it very much, especially when I was always hearing from Noel at different seminars and that kind of a thing. And I thought, well, I don't have to look in the book. And then one day I was on his forum, and I said, or I quoted something from the book, and he said, "Oh," he answers like, "Oh, using the book, are you?"
That's awesome. I know I was very excited. I got my copy last year and I was like, woohoo, I won the bid. It's coming. I was so excited. I posted about it online. I mean, you would have thought, I got another kidney or something, but I was like, I'm so pumped because they really do fluctuate in price. But, he's got other books that are out there, vocational
Well,
focus.
he does, but they're on particular things, like each one is different. One's on vocation and one's on, I guess maybe the creative astrologer, that one.
That is
But
good.
again, he really, most of it is just kind of transcriptions of him with people, but it doesn't, at least you don't have to pay 75 or $500, to get it.
Mhm.
So it helps show how he did a consultation. And if you were in his course back when he was the one doing it, he would have you turn in your last, in order to graduate, you had to turn in an acceptable consultation, which you taped on audio tape, because that was the only thing that he would let you use. Um, and it had to be, basically he wanted to see some reaction from that person that you had moved them,
Sure.
that you had caused them some moment of appreciation or aha moment or something. And I did like 5 of them before it finally, I was so frustrated. And the last one I did was a kind of a young woman, and she kind of broke down and cried because I helped point out to her that she was giving too much of herself away, and not taking care of herself. But I didn't just tell her that. I led her to it. And then she's, so I'm handing her Kleenex, and she's, and I thought, this has got to be the one that Noel.
This has got to
and
be the one.
and he did. He was like, okay, see what you can do, Barbara.
Yeah.
It was great. But he was like that. He cried all the time. He cried easily while telling a story, and he was he was a kind of a person people wanted. You want him to have lived 300 years. Not just 83. You wanted him to keep on doing what he was doing for people and for yourself. I'd have kept going I didn't go to every single seminar, but when I did, it was man, it was like such an experience. And he knew it was for us too. And he would say things like, whenever you come here, your DNA is changed.
Yeah. Yeah. I believe that. Well, I believe that, honestly, even in the passing, he's left brilliant students who will continue to pass this along, people who are interested in sharing the message that he brought forward. And also, it seems that quite spiritually, he is still looking and gathering students. So I think that the till line will continue on for sure.
Yeah, he definitely helped me with my book after the fact. Like I wrote it and published it after, before he passed away. But I'm pretty sure he's on the other side, helping me out with, just pushing me a little, because you can't, you have to help yourself. You can't exactly just sit down and do nothing and expect people to buy your book, And I think he does appreciate it. He never actually read it because when he was, I sent it to him when he was pretty much failing quite a bit, the year before he actually passed away. And I called him up one day, and I didn't even ask him about my book, but he said, "I have your book in my library." In there, he says, "I haven't read it, but it's in there."
Oh,
And he says, "Right now I'm eating a chocolate chip cookie." And he really just, he knew it was time for him to just enjoy what he enjoys, some of the things he enjoyed, and not think too hard, because he wasn't his time to be doing that. But I know that what I put in this book was it was good. I mean, if anybody wants to buy something that's not as expensive, and it really does follow what Noel had taught me, what I only do something different is go a little further with the lunar nodes with the mother, and I do the whole cookbook thing and give an example of every fourth harmonic interaction between each planet and the lunar nodes. I'm not exactly the first one to do that, but I am the first one to do it in the way I do it, because I look at the lunar nodes as something that we carry automatically from the mother, and it's kind of our situation in society, which is almost predetermined to an extent. What we go with that lunar nodal axis where we fit in this world, and we know it, we feel it, which is why we have that feeling of fate with it. But anyway, and also the other thing I do with the rulership is to not only look at the ruler of one house that is under tension, high developmental tension, but look at the other house that goes with the planet that it's in tension with, and see how those two houses connect, so that the feelings from the early home, say, came from those two areas.
yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, I was pretty proud of just taking that one step further, and I really don't think Noel objects to it now that he's on the other side.
Yeah. Well, and I think,
Yeah,
as a teacher, it's probably always great to see your students go out and to create and to put their own little voice into the world, and
I
expand. I don't
hope
know.
so. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And so when we can get this at Amazon.
yeah.
I like Amazon. I'm a fan of Amazon.
One of these days it'll be digital, and then they can make it less expensive. It's like $22, I think. So, it's not as expensive as Noel's book, not his big one. And then there's Basil's book, Basil Farrington. I'm pretty sure you could still get his, and
Yeah.
that's more of a step-by-step thing. So it's like an outline. I had a copy, and I think I gave it to somebody, like I do.
Yeah, I do. I have it right here. I love that book.
Good.
Yeah. Well, so we'll make sure that the links to your website are underneath the video. Links to the book are down there. So you guys, if you're interested in this realm, this is the way to do it. I knew Amazon was coming.
Right.
I just knew it. I said, if I do an
Yeah.
eat and greet on Friday, Amazon will come. So, well, Barbara, thank you so much for coming and sharing with
Oh,
us.
no, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what else we end up connecting on and collaborating on, because it's just so funny how things come together, and the digital times really have helped us bridge that gap. So I look forward to it. I think, and are you writing for Midheaven?
Yes, yes, yes. So I'm looking forward to that. Yeah. I have an article we're going to put in there for the spring first edition. So yay.
Yes, so that I guess will be our next connection as well. So we'll be able to
Okay.
share that amongst our groupings of people. So You guys,
Cool.
thank you so much for showing up today. And hopefully, we gave you something that was worth the time you took to show up. I'll make sure you have all of the links, all of the connections, all of that good stuff so that you can check out Barbara, check out the book, and check out the till line. So, we will see you guys actually again tomorrow, my like one and only ever weekend eat and greet. But 11 o'clock tomorrow, Mountain Time, we will be in here with Gray Crawford, where we will go over the Mercury retrogrades for 2021. We've switched from water and we're moving into air. So I will see you guys tomorrow morning. Bye, everybody.